What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Now listen, before we get into anything, I need y'all to sit down for this one, because word on the street is that Chrisean Rock just went live with company sitting right next to her, smiling for the camera like everything was sweet, and while she was up there performing for the chat, there was a little boy off camera making noise in the background, and baby, the internet is saying that sound was not random at all. Sources who watched that whole stream are alleging that Junior was back there beating on something, over and over, almost like he was trying to get somebody, anybody, to turn around and look at him. And the part that got people sick to their stomach is that not one adult in that room flinched. Not one. They all kept the exact same face, the exact same energy, like they had been coached on how to react, and now the streets are asking a very uncomfortable question: was that little boy in that corner like furniture while the adults chased views? And here's the thing, y'all. The streets are saying this goes way deeper than one live stream. Word on the street is that while all of this was going on, Blueface was on a whole other stream across town, taking Nevaeh out to dinner, acting brand new, being affectionate, and every single time Chrisean popped up on somebody's phone, that man suddenly needed to use the restroom. And I know y'all see what I see. So grab your tea, because we are about to walk through all of it: the live stream, the background noise, the dinner date, the restroom disappearances, the crying, the mama begging, all of it, and by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why people are saying this whole situation is way darker than anybody wanted to admit. Now let's start with the live stream, because this is where the whole internet basically lost its mind last night. Chrisean went live, and she had guests, she had company on her stream, and from the outside looking in, it was supposed to be one of those chill, fun, look at my life type of streams. But baby, what the people actually got was 3 grown people sitting on their phones, barely speaking to the chat, barely speaking to each other, just scrolling. And y'all know how Chrisean gets down. Chrisean will set that camera up, press live, and let it roll, because in her mind, the people are going to tune in regardless. She doesn't have to perform, she doesn't have to engage, she doesn't have to give y'all anything, because as long as her face is on that screen, the views come in. And honestly, she's not wrong, the people do tune in. But see, what Chrisean forgets is that the people aren't tuning in just to look at her. They're tuning in because they expect something from her. They want a moment. They want energy. They want her to acknowledge the room she's broadcasting from. And instead, what they got was a woman glued to her phone, guests glued to their phones, and a chat full of people sitting there like, hello, is anybody home? But that's not even the part that set the timeline on fire. The part that set the timeline on fire was the noise. Because somewhere behind that camera, off screen, out of frame, you could hear Junior. Now, for anybody who's been paying attention to this situation, you already know that Chrisean keeps Junior completely off camera. Always. No exceptions. And people have noticed that for a long time now. It's not an accident, it's a pattern. Chrisean will tell y'all about Junior, she'll update y'all on Junior, she'll narrate Junior's whole life for the camera, but actually putting Junior on that screen? Absolutely not. And a lot of people believe they know exactly why. Because the second that little boy is on camera, the spotlight shifts. The second the audience sees him, really sees him, the questions start, and Chrisean cannot control questions. Chrisean can control a caption. Chrisean can control a story time. Chrisean cannot control what 10,000 pairs of eyes see with their own vision. So instead, Junior stays in the background, and Chrisean stays in the foreground, and the audience is supposed to just take her word for everything. And for a long time, that's exactly what happened. But last night, the background made noise. And when that noise started, every guest in that room looked in the same direction at the same time, and then they looked right back at their phones like nothing happened. And baby, the internet caught every single second of it. Now here's where it gets interesting, because people who work around children, people who have raised children, people who just have plain common sense, all clocked the same thing. That didn't sound like a child playing. That sounded like a child trying to get attention. Beating on something, over and over, consistent, rhythmic, like a little person saying, hey, I'm here, somebody look at me. And the adults? The adults gave him nothing. And here's the part that really got people talking, because a lot of viewers said the guests didn't look confused by the noise. They didn't look surprised. They looked like people who already knew they weren't allowed to react. Like Chrisean had already told them, before that camera ever came on, how this was going to go. You don't ask questions. You don't turn around. You don't acknowledge anything off camera. You give the face I need you to give, and we keep it pushing. And I cannot prove what was said before that stream started, nobody can, but the behavior on that screen told a story all by itself, and the story it told was not a good look. And see, this is where I need y'all to really ride with me, because this is not the first time Junior's environment has raised eyebrows, and the streets have a long memory. Some of y'all remember the Airbnb situation. There was footage floating around from back then where Junior was sitting in this empty little playpen, no toys, no nothing, just a bare little playpen in the middle of a bare room, and that baby was sitting there scratching at the material on the outside of it, just scratching, because that was the only stimulation in his entire world at that moment. And people were disturbed by it then, and they're connecting it to what they heard last night now. Because the pattern, baby, the pattern is the problem. A playpen with nothing in it. A corner with nobody looking. A little boy making noise for attention while 3 adults sit 10 feet away performing normal. And the people are saying, at what point do we stop calling this normal? At what point does somebody in that room say something? And I know there's always somebody in the comments ready to say, well, you don't know what it's like, you don't know her life. And you're right, I don't live in that house. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard, and so do the thousands of other people who watched that stream and immediately clipped it up and started asking questions. Now, let's talk about the guests for a second, because their behavior matters here too. Allegedly, at one point during the stream, one of the guys on camera made a joke about how he deserved a portion of what Chrisean makes off the live, because in his words, he felt like he was interacting with the chat more than she was. Now, he said it like a joke, they laughed like it was a joke, but y'all already know how that goes. A joke with truth in it is not a joke, it's a confession with a smile on it. Because he was right. Chrisean was on her phone. And the streets have noticed that Chrisean is always on her phone. Every stream, every appearance, that phone is in her hand like it's stitched to her palm. And look, I understand the game. Chrisean has built a whole career off the idea that she doesn't have to do anything. She says it herself, in so many words, she can just show up, exist, and get paid. She brags on it. She throws it in people's faces. And that's her right, that's her hustle, I get it. But here's the part that people are starting to push back on. You can't brag about giving the bare minimum and then get defensive when the audience notices the bare minimum. You can't collect the check for attention and then act bothered by attention. That's not how this works. And the people who watched that stream last night felt it. They felt like they showed up for a show and got a waiting room instead. And baby, while the chat was sitting in that waiting room, Junior was still in the background. Still unheard. Still unseen. And I want to be very careful and very clear here, because this part of the conversation deserves respect. The streets have been talking about Junior for a long time now, about his development, about his condition, about the things people have observed across months and months of footage, and I'm going to say this the way it needs to be said. Nobody is owed a medical file. Chrisean does not have to put Junior's business in the street, she does not have to confirm anything, she does not have to explain anything to any of us. That's her child, and that's her right. But, and this is a big but, there's a difference between privacy and performance. And what people take issue with is not that Chrisean keeps things private. What people take issue with is the feeling that they're being asked to unsee what they see. Don't lie to me and tell me everything is exactly typical when my own eyes are watching something that doesn't read typical. Don't stage a whole scene of normal and then get mad when the audience has questions about the staging. Because here's the reality that everybody tiptoes around, and I'm not going to tiptoe. Junior is about to be 3 years old. 3. And in all the footage that has ever surfaced, the people have watched that baby get moved around in a stroller like an infant, and now that he's getting older, the visual is getting harder and harder to explain away. And people are asking, with love and with concern, if that baby needs support, mobility support, developmental support, therapy, any of it, why isn't he getting it? Because here's what I know, and I know this from being around it, there are tools out there are resources out there are chairs and equipment and programs designed exactly for children who need a different kind of help getting through the world. There is no shame in that. A child with different needs is not a broken child. A child with different needs is a child who needs a mother willing to say out loud, my baby needs something, and I'm going to get it for him. And that's the part that breaks people's hearts, because a lot of folks believe the denial isn't about protecting Junior. They believe the denial is about protecting Chrisean. Because the moment she says out loud that something is going on, the moment she gets that baby evaluated and in front of the people who could actually help him, she has to face questions about how he got there. And that, right there, is the door nobody in that family wants to open. And y'all, just when I thought the night couldn't get any messier, it did. Because while Chrisean was on her stream with that baby unheard in the background, Blueface was live at the exact same time, on a whole other stream, across town, sitting at a dinner table with Nevaeh and the kids. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, what happened at that dinner table is the part of this story that turned a messy night into a full-blown spectacle, because the internet was watching both screens at once, and the people started putting two and two together in real time, and baby, the math was matting. So let's set the scene. Blueface took Nevaeh out to eat. And not just out to eat, word on the street is he took her shopping too, and for most of that evening, Nevaeh was actually in a good mood. And I want to be fair here, because I know how it sounds when I report on this man, but the people watching said Blueface was being more affectionate than usual. A little softer, a little more present, at least by Blueface standards, because let's be honest, the bar is in the basement, but still, Nevaeh looked happy. And after everything that girl has been through, seeing her smile for a few hours almost felt like a break in the storm. Almost. Because here's the thing about Blueface that Nevaeh knows better than anybody, and it's the thing that turned that whole dinner into a crime scene by the end of the night. Blueface has a pattern. And when you've been with Blueface long enough, you can read his patterns like a weather report. And this man has one habit at the dinner table that has become so predictable, so consistent, that Nevaeh literally called it out on camera. She said it herself. She said, "It's a pattern with you." She told that man, to his face, "You can't even lie to me anymore, because you do the same thing every single time." And what is the thing? Y'all already know. Before the food even hits the table, before the appetizers even land, Blueface gets up and goes to the restroom. Every time. Like clockwork. Now, on the surface, a man going to the restroom means nothing. People go to the restroom. But this is not about a restroom, and everybody watching knew it, including Nevaeh. Because here's what the internet noticed, and this is the detail that turned a suspicious habit into a full-blown exposé. The people who were watching Chrisean's stream and Blueface's stream at the same time started comparing timestamps. And what they found sent the comments into a frenzy. The moment Blueface got up from that dinner table, the moment he disappeared into that restroom, Chrisean's stream went quiet. She got up. She stepped away. The whole energy on her end paused. And then, when Blueface came back to the table, back to Nevaeh, back to the kids, Chrisean reappeared on her stream like nothing happened. Y'all. Come on now. Ain't nobody dumb. That is not a coincidence, that is a phone call. That is a man in a restaurant restroom, with a whole pregnant woman waiting at the table, checking in with the ex across town. And the supporters in Chrisean's chat said it plain, they said, as soon as Blueface went to that restroom, she got right up off the stream, and everything stayed paused until he came back. The timelines matched like puzzle pieces. And Nevaeh? Nevaeh watched him walk back to that table knowing exactly where he had really been. And when he sat back down, she gave him the third degree. And what did Blueface do? What Blueface always does. He shut it down. He shut her up. Because Blueface is not trying to hear the truth, and Blueface knows Nevaeh is not dumb, and that's exactly the problem. He knows she knows. He just needs her to stop saying it out loud. And y'all, I need to pause right here, because I know somebody is typing right now, well, why does she stay? Why doesn't she just leave? Hold that thought. We are going to get there, because what Nevaeh's own mother said publicly this week is going to break your heart, and it answers that question in the most painful way possible. But before we get to that, we have to talk about why this restroom pattern matters so much more this week than it ever has before, because of the timing. And the timing, y'all, is everything. Nevaeh is about to have this baby. And I mean any day now. Word on the street is she could be induced as early as the 17th, and we are talking about a matter of days now. The baby shower is being thrown together quick, this Saturday, a rush job, because the baby is coming faster than the plans. So think about where we are in the story. A woman, days away from giving birth, sitting at a dinner table, watching the father of her unborn child disappear into a restroom to call another woman. And not just any other woman. Chrisean. The one woman whose name is guaranteed to cut the deepest. And here is where it gets even colder, because anybody who has followed Blueface for any length of time knows his history with pregnant women, and it is ugly. Go back and look at the pattern. When Jaden was pregnant, Blueface dipped and was seen with somebody else. When Chrisean was pregnant with Junior, Blueface was everywhere except where he was supposed to be. It is the same movie, y'all, just a different leading lady. The closer a woman gets to delivery day, the further Blueface drifts. It is like clockwork. And the streets have been watching him long enough to know that this is not a bug in his character, it is a feature. This is who Blueface is when it counts the most. Gone. And before anybody tries to tell me I'm being too hard on this man, let me remind y'all of something that happened recently, because the context matters. Blueface's house got swatted. Again. Police pulled up on him, and word on the street is it traces back to that clip, y'all know the one, that clip of Blueface kicking a woman in the back by the pool. And I don't care who you are, I don't care how famous, I don't care how entertaining you find his antics, who does that? Who kicks a woman in the back, by a pool, on camera, and thinks the world is supposed to just laugh it off? And look, I will be honest with y'all, because I owe y'all honesty. There was a time when I genuinely liked Blueface. The funny side of him, the charisma, the character he plays, I got it, I laughed too. But there is a line, and for me the line is when you start intentionally hurting people and calling it entertainment. I cannot rock with that. I don't care who he is. And the reason I bring up the swatting and the pool clip is not to pile on, it is to show y'all that what happened at that dinner table did not happen in a vacuum. There is a man at the center of this story whose behavior has a long, documented, public trail, and every woman in his orbit ends up standing somewhere along that trail, wondering how she got there. Now, back to the rotation, because this is where the story gets strategic. If you've been watching the board like I have, you noticed something. The rotation, and y'all know Blueface has always had a rotation, has narrowed. And right now, all signs point to Chrisean being the one back in position. Think about the pieces. The synchronized stream pause. The restroom calls. And now, word on the street is that there is talk of Chrisean linking back up with Blueface, and the timing of that talk is landing right on top of Nevaeh's baby shower weekend. And some people are even speculating that Chrisean has low-key threatened to crash that baby shower. Now, I'm going to be responsible here and tell y'all straight, that part is speculation. Nobody has that on paper. But what is not speculation is the pattern, and the pattern says that whenever Nevaeh has a moment that is supposed to be hers, a dinner, a celebration, a milestone, somehow Chrisean's shadow falls across it. Every single time. And Nevaeh feels it. Y'all, she feels it in her bones, and that is why what happened next hit so hard. Because after the dinner, after the restroom trips, after the third degree and the shutdown, Nevaeh broke. On camera, y'all. This girl, who has sat through humiliation after humiliation with her head up, finally hit the wall, and she broke down crying, right there in front of everybody. And it wasn't pretty crying, it wasn't performance crying, it was the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep, the kind that has been loading up for months. She got so emotional she pushed the camera away from her face, and honestly, that little gesture said more than any words could have. Because in that moment, you could see the whole situation for what it really is. A young woman, days away from bringing a baby into the world, carrying a toddler, carrying the weight of a man who keeps showing her exactly who he is, and she is carrying all of it in public, with an audience, with comment sections, with the other woman one phone call away. And as much as I have my opinions about the choices that put her in that chair, I am not going to sit here and pretend that watching that wasn't sad. It was sad. It was genuinely, deeply sad. And the internet, for all its cruelty, felt it too. And speaking of that breakdown, this is where the story takes a turn that nobody was ready for, because while the internet was processing Nevaeh's tears, her mother stepped into the conversation, and what that mama said stopped everybody cold. Nevaeh's own mother went live, y'all, and with the whole world watching, that woman said the words that every parent in the audience felt in their chest. She said, "I cannot make my child come home to me." She said, "I have asked my daughter to come home. I have begged my daughter to come home." Begged, y'all. A mother, on the internet, telling strangers that she has begged her pregnant daughter to leave a situation, to come back home, to stop living through what she's living through, and that her daughter won't do it. And then she said the truest thing in this entire saga. She said, "You cannot make an adult do what they don't want to do." And I need everybody to sit with that for a second, because I have seen people coming for Nevaeh's mama in these comments sections, asking where is her mother, why doesn't her mother come get her, and now y'all have the answer. Her mother has been standing at the door with it wide open the whole time. The door was never locked. Nevaeh just won't walk through it. And that is a grief that most people cannot imagine, watching your child choose pain, begging her to choose peace, and having to love her from the other side of a door she refuses to open. So before anybody comes for that mama again, remember what she said. You cannot make an adult do what they don't want to do. And that's not an excuse, that's a heartbreak. But it also leaves us with the question that this entire story keeps circling back to. Why? Why won't Nevaeh go home? What is she so afraid of on the other side of that door? Because let's think about it logically. If Nevaeh left tomorrow, she would still be the mother of Blueface's children. She would still have a lifelong connection to him. She loses nothing by going home except the daily humiliation. And yet she stays. She stays through the restroom phone calls. She stays through the other women. She stays through the gaslighting, and y'all, we need to talk about the gaslighting, because I said something before that I want to correct, and I'm correcting it on purpose because precision matters. I have called Blueface manipulative in the past, and that's true, but it is not the right word for what he does to Nevaeh. The right word is gaslighting, and there is a difference, and the difference matters. Manipulation is getting somebody to do what you want. Gaslighting is getting somebody to doubt what they know. And that is Blueface's signature move with Nevaeh. She catches the pattern, she calls the pattern out, she literally says to him, you can't lie to me, I know what this is, and what does he do? He flips it. He makes her the problem. Suddenly she's tripping, she's imagining things, she's ruining the mood, and her bringing it up is the reason he's angry, and his anger becomes the reason he storms off, and now she has spent the whole night apologizing for catching him. That is a cycle, y'all, and it is a textbook cycle, and if you have ever loved a narcissist, you recognized every step of that dance before I finished describing it. He doesn't have to hide what he's doing anymore. He just has to make her too tired to keep naming it. And here's the part that should concern everybody, because this is where the cycle stops being about the adults. There are children in this house, watching all of it. Superior is growing up inside this chaos, and people who watch the streams have started noticing a change, not just in Nevaeh, but in Blueface's energy toward that little boy. Viewers have clocked Blueface getting shorter with Superior, more distant, more impatient, and the language coming out of the grown folks' mouths around that child has started to shift, calling him whiny, telling him he cries too much, talking about how they don't want the new baby turning out soft, like a toddler's feelings are a character flaw that needs correcting. And y'all, I want somebody to explain to me where that energy came from, because it is not a coincidence that the closer Nevaeh gets to delivery, the colder the house gets. It really does look like a man getting tired of the life he built, right at the moment that life is about to demand the most from him. And meanwhile, there are people around that woman trying to get her doing stretches and exercises to hurry the baby along, like the baby is a package running late, when what that woman actually needs is somewhere quiet, somewhere soft, somewhere she can prepare her body and her mind for the nights that are coming, the feedings, the no sleep, the recovery. She needs peace. And peace is the one thing nobody in that house is offering her, because she is too busy doing detective work, peeking at phones, reading patterns, trying to stay one step ahead of a man who is always going to be 3 steps ahead of her, because he wrote the playbook and she just lives in it. Now, I know the comments are already loading up, so let me go ahead and open the floor, because I want to hear from y'all on this one, and I mean really hear from y'all. Here's my question. Whose responsibility is Junior's condition? Because this is the debate that splits this entire fanbase down the middle, and both sides come with receipts. On one side, you've got the people who say Blueface stood right there and watched everything happen. He was present, he was grown, and some folks go even further and say there were moments where he was the one encouraging the turn up, telling her to drink, telling her to have fun, pushing the lifestyle while she was carrying his son. If that's true, then he doesn't get to act brand new now. But then you've got the other side, and their argument is just as loud. They say Chrisean is a grown woman. Nobody put a bottle to her mouth. Nobody made her choices for her. She did exactly what she wanted to do, when she wanted to do it, and the consequences belong to the person who made the decisions. And y'all, both of those things can be true at the same time, and I think that's what makes this debate so heated, because picking a side means letting somebody off a hook that maybe nobody deserves to be let off of. So tell me where you land. Is it on him, is it on her, or is the truth somewhere in the middle where nobody wants to look? Drop it in the comments, because I will be down there reading. And while you're down there, answer this one too, because this is the second question that has the timeline in a chokehold. If you were Nevaeh, days from giving birth, watching your man slip into restrooms to call the one woman who has haunted your whole relationship, would you pack your bags tonight, or would you stay for the sake of the family you're about to bring into the world? And no judgment either way, because I promise you, half the people with strong opinions have never had to make a choice that heavy. But I'm curious where the room leans. Leave or stay, and why? And the third thing I need from y'all, because this is where it all comes back around full circle. That noise on Chrisean's stream, that little boy in the background beating on something while 3 adults pretended not to hear him. Was that a baby playing, or was that a baby asking for help? Because the internet has decided what it thinks, but I want to know what you think, and I want you to be honest, not loyal. Honest. So here's where we land, y'all. 3 days, maybe less, until that baby could be here. A baby shower on Saturday that everybody is watching like it's a season finale, because nobody knows who's going to show up, who's going to get a phone call in the middle of it, or whether the guest of honor is going to spend her own celebration watching a restroom door. A mother at home with her door open and her arms empty. A little boy behind a camera, making noise that nobody is supposed to react to. And at the center of all of it, the same question I asked you at the very beginning of this video. When a child asks for attention and every adult in the room has been trained not to answer, what exactly are we watching? I'll tell you what I think we're watching. We're watching the part of the story right before everything changes. Because babies don't wait, due dates don't care about rotations, and when that child arrives, every pattern in that house is going to get tested at once. And I will be right here when it does, because if you think last night was messy, baby, wait until that baby shower. Something tells me the streets are going to be talking for weeks. But you know what? I'd love to know what you think before it all goes down. Is Nevaeh going to finally walk through that open door, or is she going to spend her baby's first days doing phone patrol? And is Chrisean going to let that baby shower happen in peace, or is the rotation about to spin one more time? Sound off in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed with the notifications on, because the moment something moves in this story, and it will move, I'm coming right back with every receipt. Y'all be easy, and I'll see you on the next one. And that door, y'all, that door brings us straight to the woman at the center of this whole storm, because we cannot talk about this week without talking about Chrisean herself, and I mean really talking about her, past the surface, past the antics, down to the part where the persona stops and the person starts. Because something Chrisean said recently has been sitting with me, and after last night, it sits even heavier. Chrisean told the world, in so many words, that y'all might need Blueface, but Blueface needs her. And I keep turning that statement over, because on the surface it sounds like confidence, it sounds like a woman who knows her position, but when you hold it up to the light, it starts to look like something else entirely. How exactly does Blueface need Chrisean? Let's be real about it. Blueface needs Chrisean the way a show needs a plot twist. When the numbers get slow, when the streams get quiet, when the timeline gets bored, Chrisean appears, and suddenly everybody is watching again. That is not need, baby, that is use. There is a difference between a man who cannot live without you and a man who cannot trend without you, and the painful truth is that Blueface can run his streams up just fine on his own, and he proves it every time he's on camera without her. But Chrisean has built a whole identity on being the one he always comes back to, and the reason that identity matters so much to her is the part nobody wants to say out loud. The world found out about Chrisean because of Blueface. That is just the truth. Everything she has built since, the music, the streams, the following, the moments, that part is all her, and I will never take that from her, because she turned an introduction into a career and not everybody can do that. But the foundation of the house is his name, and she knows it, and when your foundation is another person, you can never fully walk away from them, because walking away feels like tearing down everything you built on top. And here's where the performance gets hard to watch, because instead of sitting in any of that truth, Chrisean wraps it all in a bow and calls it faith. And I know I'm about to step on some toes, but it needs to be said. People are tired of the walk with God monologues, and they're not tired of them because of God, they're tired of them because the walk never seems to touch the talk. You cannot broadcast a testimony in the morning and the same chaos by night, every week, forever, and expect the audience to keep calling it a journey. At some point, the people stop hearing faith and start hearing branding. And the same thing goes for the boxing. Every few months we hear about the training, the license, the big fight plans, and look, if Chrisean truly dedicated herself to that ring, I would be the first one tuned in, because love her or not, the woman is an athlete. But everybody watching can see that her head and her heart are living in a completely different arena, and that arena has Blueface standing in the middle of it. You cannot train for a title fight while your whole spirit is parked outside somebody else's situation. The people see it. They've been seeing it. And that's why the patience in the comment sections is running so thin. And while we're being honest, let's talk about the hierarchy Chrisean has built in her own head, because this is the part that genuinely fascinates me. Chrisean moves through this whole circus like she's the ringmaster and not one of the acts. She carries herself like she's elevated above the other women, like her connection to Blueface is a different substance than theirs, like she's the main character and they're all just guest stars in her story. And baby, the audience is looking at the screen like, you are in the same rotation, on the same stream schedule, answering the same restroom phone calls. You are not above the mess. You are in the mess, up to your neck, same as everybody else. And I don't say that to be cruel, I say it because it is the exact illusion that keeps this whole machine running. Every woman in Blueface orbit believes she is the exception, and as long as each one believes that, none of them ever have to admit they're all standing in the same line. And Chrisean, for all her toughness, for all that bark, might be the deepest in that line of all, because she's the one who has been there the longest and learned the least. And now the streets are saying she's positioning herself again, right on schedule, right as another woman's baby is about to arrive, and if the pattern holds the way the pattern always holds, we are watching the opening scene of the exact same movie for the third time. And there is one more detail floating around out there that I cannot skip, because it might be the coldest chess move in this entire story. Word on the street is that Chrisean's coach has already drawn a line, allegedly telling her that traveling is off the table for her right now. And y'all know what that means. If Chrisean cannot go to Blueface, then the only way this link-up happens is Blueface coming to her. And look at the calendar. Look at the window. The only open days he has are the exact days everybody else will be using to throw Nevaeh that baby shower. So do the math with me. If this man vanishes during the baby shower planning, or worse, during the shower itself, the whole internet is going to know exactly where he went before he even gets there. And maybe that's why Nevaeh broke the way she broke. Maybe she can feel it coming. Because she has watched this pattern longer than any of us, and somewhere deep down, she already knows that the week that is supposed to be hers is probably not going to be hers at all.